Good. Hey, everybody. Sorry about last night. Been a long couple of years, a late night, and so I appreciate doing this today. I think if you guys want to try to break it up a little bit, start with draft. Anything you want to kind of talk about that, and then happy to take questions on the season or anything kind of afterwards, if that's all right with you guys.
That sounds good.
Yeah, works for me. Thanks, John.
All right, let's get started with Jim.
Well, John, I guess we'll start. Why make the trade?
Yeah, I think we were really exploring a lot of opportunities that would check a number of boxes for us, Jim. And so we've obviously been aggressive investing resources the last couple of years to try to improve and get better, position ourselves for sustained success, championship success. And that's cost us a lot of draft picks. And so 31 represented a really good opportunity to get really good players. And I think there are really good players there, or were really good players there. But we looked at it as an opportunity to try to get a bunch of assets, or as many as we could, to really kind of restock the tool chest, I guess. And so we got a chance to get in the draft in two places this year, and we liked the draft. We thought it was pretty deep, and we got a chance to put some really good quality picks in the tool chest going forward. So we got a future 24 and a future 26 pick as well that they'll be quality picks. And so again, kind of accomplished a lot of things that we wanted to do. We'll figure out contractually what we'll do with our draft picks, and we'll kind of go from there.
Well, I guess sort of along those lines contractually, is Georgios a guy you expect to come over right now, or is that to be determined?
Yeah, I think so with Georgios.
Georgios, excuse me. Yeah.
It's Kalaitzakis. It just rolls off the tongue. It's easy. He is to be determined. Like at a lot of times with the guy, I think you still have to figure out buyouts. You have to figure out contracts that will make sense. But we're excited about him. From a skill set standpoint and a size, he's 6'6", 6'7", really versatile. Has played at a high level. Hasn't played a lot of minutes, but he's played in a really competitive league and played for Panathinaikos. He's got toughness, and so I think there's a place and a way for him to come over now, and potentially. But he's a development guy. Like, we're going to really invest in him in the right way and try to bring him along the right way and develop him, and trying to figure out where that is and how that is. But he's an interesting guy. He's kind of fun to watch and study, and he's got really great upside.
Eric?
John, speaking of the trade, obviously as the draft unfolded, you saw the team that would have been in front of you at 30 make a move right around that time, and then the team at 32 make a trade as well. Is there any regret to making the move as early as you did? Obviously, I know you're happy to get 4 draft picks, but as you're thinking about it, like, is it some thought like, man, maybe we should have held a little bit longer and it would have been different, or kind of what goes into that thought process?
Well, in all honesty, so educate me a little bit. Obviously, I know that those happen. Like, what did they net versus what did we net, and what was the timing? Did we go first, or not based on like what was reported? I believe we went first out of those deals. I think our deal was first. What did those deals net? What did 30 net? What did 32 net? What did
30 got 40 and 2 future seconds, and then 32 got 34 and 36.
Yeah. So to me, for our goal is to try to put things in the future, and to also be in this draft, because again, we like the depth of the draft. There's a couple guys that we had targeted, Sandro and Georgios being 2 of those guys. Totally checked the boxes that we wanted. I think our deal was first, and for it being first, checking our boxes, then when you compare it to those deals, we got 4 second-round picks, and 2 of them one's in 24 and one's in 26. And so whether those are assets that we'll draft, 3 and 5 years from now, or we'll put into trades, I think the length and how far out they are and the quality of teams that are involved in those picks going down the road, I think those have potential to have real value in trades, real value in draft perspective. And it kept us in the draft in a range where we were comfortable this year. I feel great about it. That's the strategy behind it. And after you kind of told me what you told me, when it all nets out, I think that kind of nets out. They're all very similar. You could argue ours is better on the number of picks. Maybe theirs are a little better on the quality of picks. But I think they kind of net out. So, to me, it feels right.
Speaking of Sandro, I'm curious, what do you feel his position is? I mean, I've watched some tape, and I'm trying to figure it out. So I'm curious just how you see him fitting into an NBA roster.
He's got some Eric Nem in him, I can tell you that. He definitely got some point forward. He's really interesting. He's got a great motor. He's more athletic than people think vertically. I think you can see his lateral athleticism. He's really mobile. I think he's a potential kind of multi-positional defender in the switch game. High level passer, which usually translates to IQ, which is really important for bigs. There's a translation between bigs that can pass and have high assists. I'm not calling him these guys, but if you think of like the Vlade Divac and Andrew Bogut and kind of go on down the road, Jokic, he's not those guys today. You never know what he can become. But I'm just, the point being that bigs that can pass and have these assist numbers usually translates to IQ and figuring it out. And I think he has that. He could shoot it. He shot at a pretty high level. He's a conference player a year in one of the best conferences in college basketball. So I think he's ready to step in if needed. And so, yeah, that to me, I see him as a little bit of a point forward, a multi-positional defender, and a high IQ guy that has a chance to help us now and going forward.
And then I would kind of ask the same thing about Giorgos. Just kind of what do you see position-wise? I know some people had said early in his career he's kind of point forwardy as well. So I'm just curious what you see there.
Yeah, I think more guard wing. Like I don't know. You never know with these young people like how much they're going to grow and develop physically. But I mean point forward if you want. I think he's going to be a guard wing. He's a 6'6", 6'7" guy who can really pass and handle and is developing as a shooter. High IQ, and his body's going to have to take some development. I talked to him last night about it, and I think he's willing to put in the work, and he'll do that. And hopefully, we can really help him develop and come along whenever that is, if it's this year or going forward. But he's an interesting guy, and I wouldn't call him a point forward. I think he's really going to play like that 2-3 in his NBA career if he has success. And for us, in the way that we play, guys that can make reads off the second side of the ball, that can make an open shot, that have competitiveness and have size. We've done well with those guys, and we've done pretty well with Greek players as well.
Steve McGargy.
Thanks. I'm just wondering, they're both 22, a little on the older side for NBA draft. Is that something y'all pay much attention to, or at that point in the draft? I was just wondering, how much that age factor plays into your decisions there?
Yeah, I don't think it's a lack of confidence. It's definitely not. It's just, to me, Steve, the reason I would start answering it that way is they're a little more known, and it's a little less risk, a little less of a bet. And that's kind of what I'm comfortable with where our team is right now. It doesn't mean that they're going to be great players. It doesn't mean that they're going to fail. It's just they have a little bit more on their resume. They're more known, and I like that about them. I think there's some established things that both Sandro and Giorgos can do that we can count on. Whether or not that translates to helping the Bucks this year or next year or going forward is to be determined. But I guess I think I read somewhere that maybe 7 seniors were taken in the draft last year or last night. So yeah, they're on the older side, I guess, as guys that go drafted, but that's kind of what I want. I want to know what we're getting and the things that we can count on and try to develop the other things. And if that comes together, I think we'll have a player.
Any other draft related questions? Nope. All right, let's go back to Jim.
John, I mean, what is this? The second shortest off season in NBA
Last year.
So I don't know. It's so strange.
It's all one.
So I guess I mean, as you guys do look forward, is it is an extension for Mike something that's important to get done, before the start of camp in 8 weeks or so?
Yeah, that's just crazy. Is it really 8 weeks? Yeah, I think it's obviously important. You look at collectively from an organization, from Mark, West, Jamie, Mike, Peter, myself, Bud, partnering, working together, some pretty high level goals over the last 3 or 4 years of retaining our talent, building an organization that has sustainability, compete for championships, the things that we've been able to do, having the most regular season wins, the most playoff wins, 2 Eastern Conference finals, an NBA championship now, Giannis deciding to stay with us, Chris deciding to stay with us, Atwari and Drew. That's not me. That's not Mark, West, and Jamie. It's not Peter. It's not Bud. It's us. And doesn't mean that we're going to do it again next year or that we'll ever do it again. But collectively, I think we've proven that we can work really well together. We can accomplish big things. We have a mission. We're all pulling in the same direction. And Bud's an incredible partner, someone that I want to work with for as long as I possibly can. our players want to work with and our ownership trusts in and believes in. And so that's the goal. Absolutely. And obviously we haven't done it today, or maybe probably won't do it tomorrow, because Bud and I are partnering and we're trying to figure out the team. You know, we figured out the draft. We're happy with what we did there. Now it's all hands on deck trying to figure out free agency when that opens up on August 2nd, and try to figure out how to put the best team we can together for next year.
Is where's Donte at in his rehab? Is he in a spot where you're thinking he can be on a court and doing some stuff in camp, or is that a situation that might extend into kind of preseason, regular season?
Really too early to know.
Okay.
Incredibly successful surgery. He's doing everything he can right now to be ready as soon as he possibly can. But just kind of the way that this one works, it's going to be a little bit before we really know what the timeline looks like. And because it's just going to be based on strength and conditioning, and we're not going to put Donte in a position where he's not healthy and not ready to come back and put him out there too early. So it's too early to know. But he's ahead of where he should be at this time, and he's doing an incredible job right now. But it's still too hard to tell what timeline would be.
I know he's one of those guys who, you know, with the rookie scale extensions, like he's in that window. Does that affect that at all in your view? Like, would you kind of just need to feel comfortable seeing him again on the court? And like, I don't know your timeline on that too, in terms of when you want to know numbers and kind of that type of thing.
Yeah, I think, and Donte and I have talked about this a little bit. I've talked to his agents. Like, that whole thing it gets complicated. Injuries complicate things. But that doesn't mean that we have like a lack of information on Donte. We know who Donte is. We know what he can do on the floor. We have complete confidence in his health. I mean, this is not some sort of injury that he had that players struggle to come back from. So there's no questions on Donte. It's really just a question of what's best for him, what's best for us. And at some point when we're, you know, willing and able to have those conversations and really try to negotiate something, can we? And if not, it won't be a reflection on what he thinks of us or we think of him either. He's on his rookie scale deal. We have another year on his rookie scale deal. If we don't do an extension, he'll be a restricted free agent. If we do, he'll be under an extension. And so we love Donte. We're incredibly bought in on Donte. He's our starting two guard. And he was really good in that position, and we missed him in the playoffs. I know we ended up winning a championship, but we're a much better team with Donte DiVincenzo than we are without.
You mentioned obviously the extensions and the guys who chose to stay. So your hands are a little bit tied at what you expected in terms of financially, and with the exceptions that you do have, and I know I think PJ's Bird writes, I don't know if aggressive is the right word, John, but like, can you be aggressive with those exceptions, or is that kind of something where you have to wait to see how things shake out? And since there are obviously factors there you can't control with what other teams can do and offer and what player may, you know what I mean? Like, how do you kind of view what you have to work with and what you could do with it, I guess? Since it's kind of set to a degree.
No, it's definitely set. And that's okay. Like Wes Eden was talking to him the other day, like winning a championship has a cost, you know, and it has a roster cost and it has a flexibility cost. And that's okay. Like, it's our job to continue to maneuver and manipulate and figure out the best thing we can do with what we have, the resources we have at our fingertips. We don't have a lot of them in free agency. And so, you know, we're meeting right now. My staff's meeting. I'm going to break from this. We're going to meet again. Like, we got to get ready for free agency. We got to figure out how we can use the avenues that we have. We got to figure out who we think will be available. We have to really study the market, where we think it's going to go. We have to study who we think could fit on our roster. If we can get someone on a minimum, if we can get them on part of a mid-level, get them on the full tax team mid-level. If we can use our bird rights players, there's different things that we have to figure out how to do. And I don't know if it's aggressive or patient. I just think when it's appropriate and when you're able to start negotiating, you're able to start recruiting, you got to be prepared, and you have to have your top level options and your secondary options, your tertiary options, and be ready to move and pivot as quickly as possible. That's what we're trying to get ready right now. And when we can, we'll start tackling it. And I think, you know, there's always been confidence, Jim, in this is what we want to do. If we can do it, do it. And if we can't, then like, let's try to work for the best option we can. And a little bit full circle back to Eric's question earlier. I don't know if we got the maximum value we could have for 31. I know we didn't get the worst value we could have for 31, but we got the value that we needed for the Milwaukee Bucks for 31. And I think we take the same approach in free agency when we get there as well.
Eric?
It doesn't take a cap expert to know that you're going to be in the luxury tax next year. So I'm curious for you, what has that conversation kind of been like? Because I mean, obviously the deeper you get, the more those dollars multiply. Like those are really tough conversations to have with an ownership group. So I'm just curious, what have those conversations been like for you thus far?
Yeah, they've been thankfully they're continuous, and it's not some aha moment that, after we won a championship, now we're gonna be a tax team. I mean, you could see the writing on it. We made first and foremost, we made a draft capital and player capital investment in Drew Holiday after already investing in Giannis and investing in Chris, and then hopefully we can invest in Giannis. We made the draft capital and player capital investment in Drew, and to keep Drew, basically set forward a path of being a really expensive team. But that was the goal in trying to get Drew, is if we could get Drew, we're going to want to try to keep him. And I think it's going to play out that contract in particular is going to be really valuable. We'll see what happens here in free agency with the point guard market, but there's a lot of teams that need really high quality point guards, and Drew is that. And so I think it starts with Mark and Wes and Jamie, and then supported with Peter. These guys want to win. They want to win at the highest level, and they're willing to invest in that if it's a smart investment. And it's a smart investment in the franchise and the value of the franchise, a smart investment in the players, that we're getting great return value on the dollars that we're spending. And the luxury tax obviously decreases the efficiency of our spend. And, to be a little nerdy, our basically our cost per win has been the best in the NBA the last 3 years, a very, very high level cost per win. It's going to go down. We still hope to win a lot, but the cost per win, the value is going to go down. The cost per win is going to go up. And these guys are willing to do that as long as we're getting the results that we expect to get. And so they've been incredibly supportive. Doesn't mean they're easy conversations. This is real money, and these are real decisions for them. But we are beyond grateful and blessed to have these guys here in Milwaukee with this organization. And for me to work for them, and for Bud to work for them, and Peter, that they're willing to resource us. It's incredible. And they are, and they have been so far, and they will going forward, as long as we can prove that we're making sound decisions.
I know after the parade, I talked with Giannis a little bit, and he had mentioned kind of the idea that he wants his guys back, that, hey, these are the guys that won a championship with me. We should bring them along. Obviously there's going to be money constraints. Obviously there's going to be guys that want more money than you might be able to offer them. How does kind of his desires as your star player kind of play into these conversations? And what are those conversations like between you and him to kind of figure out how to make sure that, yes, Giannis is still happy, but also, hey, these are the financial constraints that we have as an organization?
Yeah, I think earlier to one of the questions someone asked, I talked about Mark and Wes and Jamie and Peter and Bud and I and Giannis and Chris. It's a partnership. And so in a partnership, trust has to exist. Communication has to exist. Back and forth, hearing ideas, sharing ideas. And that happens. It happens with Giannis. It happens with Chris. It happens with any of our players at different times. We've talked about that a lot. So how do those conversations go? They just happen. I mean, we talk about it. We talk openly. And I think Giannis at some level and Chris at some level want to understand what we can and can't do, and want to understand how they can help. And so that part's incredibly productive and open, and he knows that we're going to do the best we can, and he trusts us to do the best we can. And if we can't bring back some or all of those guys, that we're going to find the next best thing. Our goal going into free agency is going to be able to figure out a way to try to keep the group together the best as we can. We love our guys. I think they love us. We just want a championship together. We're going to want to try to figure that out. When we can negotiate and when we can recruit, we'll do our best. Will that happen? I have no idea. We'll do our best. And if not, then we'll hopefully have a better, we'll have another opportunity, another plan. And I think Giannis and our players trust us that we're going to do the best we can with those resources and do the best we can to run it back.
As Jim mentioned, you guys have some rights on PJ that allows you a little bit more freedom than it would with a different free agent. How does that play into it? And then I guess just kind of the overall importance of PJ Tucker. This is a guy that you targeted very early in the season, and you really wanted to get. You got him. It paid off, and obviously he needs to get paid as well.
Yeah, it's valuable. I think that's my first response to that is the fact that we have rights on him is valuable. It absolutely played into the calculus of trading for him. We knew where we were going. Wasn't a surprise that we're in the luxury tax. Wasn't a surprise that we're going to have limited flexibility. Acquiring rights for players and bird rights gives us other options to continue to improve and adjust this roster beyond the limited exceptions that we have. And so I don't know what that means in terms of what his dollars will be or his years or what his market is. I don't know any of those things yet. Like we're studying all that and we're going to be ready for all that. And when free agency opens, like we'll do the best we can. But the fact that we have rights on PJ as an avenue to sign him gives us a chance to have a really quality player without dipping into some of our other exceptions. And so that's one of the reasons why we acquired him. It's valuable. And I think it'll prove to be valuable in free agency as well.
You have 4 guys that are on minimums with some varying degree of guarantees, non-guarantees. Those are guys that have been at the end of your roster, I would assume, are going to be in the spot to compete for roster spots. But how do you kind of judge that? Obviously, this is a long process, but it's condensed into a very short time period with Summer League right around the corner and all that. How do you kind of judge those 4 guys kind of at the bottom of the roster?
I mean, it's so important to have guys like that on your roster in a season like we just had. I many times I would look, and this isn't like to pat myself on the shoulder or Ryan Hoover in our scouting group or TJ Barr or Pat Hanneman or Dave Dean or Milt, but I'm like, gosh, we're actually playing meaningful playoff basketball right now. We have like 4 or 5 guys like on developmental contracts. Like that's pretty good, and these guys are good players. I mean, Sam Merrill's a good player, Jordan Nwora, Mamadi Diakite, Elijah Bryant, like these guys are really good players that did different things for us throughout the course of the season. My point to that is we've been evaluating them for over a year. So there's a lot of value in having guys like that on a good team playing games at different times. So you get that real evaluation. That's going to matter. It does matter. We've got Summer League coming up. We'll have, our off season kind of just training and open gyms and things like that where we'll be able to look at them. And then you'll have training camp. And so they all have different dates and different timelines and all these different things that we'll have to kind of manage and work through. But we've gotten a really good evaluation so far. There's some really good evaluation periods coming up. What happens in free agency will play into it. What happens with Sandro and Georgios will play into it. So there's a lot of moving parts still, but I'm really thankful that we've had these guys for a year. And I think we really have a nice opinion and evaluation on these guys so far, which is really valuable to have that many young guys kind of in our roster that we know about.
Steve?
I just wondering what feedback you've gotten since the end of the season from Bryn and Bobby, the 2 guys with the player option. So obviously you're in the constraints there, but just how did you feel about what you got from those guys this past season and just the confidence level, just in terms of what you can do with those guys maybe?
Yeah, I mean, Steve, I guess maybe I will like dive in individually on each guy, but at the end of the day, PJ pouring champagne on himself, like on the stage, and like, Brandon, Bobby doing what they like, that's the feedback. And I don't know what that means. I know that they chose us at some level, PJ, not so much. We chose him, but like Bobby and Bryn made decisions to come to Milwaukee because they wanted to win. They wanted to have a role on a really good team and have a chance to win at a high level. That's why we got those guys in free agency last year. And they 100% lived up to their end of the bargain. And collectively as an organization, we lived up to our end of the bargain. That's the only real feedback I have right now. I think, again, those guys are great guys, forever grateful for what they did for us. And hopeful that, when the time is right, we can figure out if there's a way to do something again with those guys, PJ included. But the feedback to me is like we had a parade together, and the city had a parade and we won a championship together. And that forever has been meaningful in the NBA. What that means for dollars and cents and terms, and who knows, like we'll find out. But that's a meaningful thing. And I think that matters.
Back to Jim.
Hey, John, first of all, thank you for being patient, willing to kind of break this up from draft. And so looking back, obviously you just mentioned you had a parade. And won a championship. So I think in those final moments of Game 6, I think when everyone kind of realized what was happening, where did your thoughts go? You've been with this organization a long time, and started in maybe some not so good spots where this seemed a long way away, I guess is maybe a fair way to say it. So where did your head go as that was ticking down there in Game 6?
Man, everywhere. Everywhere for sure. There's some things that stick out to me. Man, I'll like not to get too deep, but like I'm I'm religious. I have a big faith in God. And like, so I'll start there. Like, incredibly thankful. I just get humbled by the blessings to be part of that. And so the one moment I remember vividly, I watched the games from the suite, run into Eric a lot. And some of you guys, like, when I kind of knew it was happening, I'm like, okay, I think it's okay for me to walk down. Like the worst thing could be ever like walk down and then like be stuck down there and somehow we lose some crazy ending. And I'm like, okay, I think it's the right time. So before that, just stared over the crowd and many flashbacks of the Bradley Center and just different things throughout my time in Milwaukee and the people you guys don't know, people from Mike Sergo and people you do know, Dan Smichek and Rita Huber and Dave Dean, people, John Steinmiller, Senator Cole, John Hammond, people who've been with the organization or part of the organization for a long time. And I remember staring over the crowd and just thinking, wow, like we're going to win an NBA championship in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Something hasn't happened in 50 years. And like every one of these people are part of it. And quickly then kind of as I'm on my way down, getting my staff to come with me, thinking about my wife, you know, Mia and Zeke and Sophie, my kids, and my mom and dad were there and my sister and my brother. And just like my family being there for that moment, being able to kind of celebrate with them afterwards. And the last one, not to bore you guys too much, is before we kind of went out on the court, being in the back hallway with my staff. You know, Milt Newton, who chose to come and be an assistant GM for someone who nobody knew. This guy was a general manager for Minnesota Timberwolves, drafted some really good players, and he chose me. At the end of the day, like he had to trust to come work for me, put his future career in the hands of me in Milwaukee, a complete unknown. And I'm forever grateful for him. He's the most incredible support, number 2 guy in the world. In my opinion, he's incredible. He needs to be running a team. A lot of this stuff happens because of him, not because of me. And Dave Dean and Ryan Hoover and Pat Hanneman and like Matt Blero, and being in that moment and sharing with those guys and just saying like, guys, for the rest of our lives, we're going to be NBA champions. Congrats to you. Like we all did this. And then quickly shifting to like, how are we going to do it again? Because there's a realization even in that moment in that hallway, 10 seconds before this buzzer goes off, like we're going to celebrate this, but we actually have a job coming up in like 24 to 48 hours. We got to get back on track. And so like, maybe that's really bad leadership by me, but like, that's just how I'm like, guys, this is incredible. Way to go. Hey, but remember after this, like we got to rock. And so there's many more, but those are the things that kind of stick out to me.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, obviously your history with Giannis goes all the way back in so many ways, personally, professionally. Obviously he took time to kind of share some moments with you in front of the world, right? Where people were able to see you guys kind of have that. So what did it mean, I guess, whether it be personally or even professionally, as you said, as a GM who had to, I don't know if convince is the right word, but have him believe to sign the Supermax in December and those conversations? Like, what did it mean, I guess, in those moments to share that with him, that he had the presence of mind, I guess, to kind of palm you your head a little bit and have those talks and to see that goal reached, I guess, with him?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. Like I hadn't really in the moment, you know, I'm not even thinking about like, we're having this moment that everyone's like, I mean, even now, I'm not even really sure I understand. I guess Giannis and I have talked a lot about it since, and I guess some of these are captured on TV or a film,
right.
or I don't know, but to share in the moment generally of winning a championship at different times and different conversations that Giannis and I have had it's a lifetime thing. I mean, for the rest of my life, the rest of his life, like I'll be able to share that with him. As will many people. There's many people that have poured into Giannis and he's poured into. None of it happens without him. And at the end of the day, like that's why we're successful as an organization, is because his desire, his competitiveness, his character, his loyalty, his belief in our organization and our city and his teammates and me as a general manager and Bud as a coach, he sets it all. And so what you're expressing to me, am I surprised that he had the presence of mind to touch people and share moments with them? I'm probably one of 50, but that's okay. Like when you're Giannis Antetokounmpo, there's 50, probably many, many more people that are reliant in their careers and their professions on his success. And, you know, I picked the number 50 for a reason. There's no better example of that than you have a chance to win an NBA championship in the closeout game and you go for 50 and whatever, he had 5 or 6 blocks and he had 13 or 14 rebounds. Like it's an historic all-time great performance and a historic all-time great moment. He's 26 years old. And so I couldn't say enough about Giannis, and I'm very, very fortunate to have moments in my life with Giannis, many of them, none better than winning a championship with him.
Right. It's I mean, when you talked at the beginning of the year, it was kind of that weird, okay, he's a 2-time MVP, but he has still so far to go, or has abilities that he can still mine out of that, I guess. And I know he'll still say he wants to get better, but does it kind of show that the work paid off to a degree or mattered, like that, the pregame stuff with Josh, or the unseen stuff where he's working on baseline fades and one-legged, like baby hooks, like all of that kind of came together at the end. I don't know, not that you needed validation with a championship or anything like that, but I guess, does that kind of show to you as a talent evaluator, like, wow, like the ceiling, we thought the ceiling was really, really high, but we're seeing it, right? Like he's, I guess, taking the stairs up there, for lack of a better phrase.
Well, yeah. I've never said I think the ceiling is really high. I always said I know the ceiling is really high. And I also know like the floor is really low or really high. Also, I don't know what the appropriate example is there, but he, because of his work ethic, because of his character, because of his skill, because of his gifts, his mental approach to the game, his physical approach to the game, like the sky's the limit. Like Giannis will add something else to his game this offseason. He adds something to his game every offseason. He's going to get better. I continue to say that. He's going to improve as a shooter, a decision maker, how he paces himself, his physical strength. He's just going to keep getting better. None of that, and he would say that none of that, or none of what we've done as a front office, or the coaching staff has done in coaches, or his teammates have done as players, guarantees anything. Like to say that you expect to win a championship, or that's somehow what the expectation is, or if you do this, you're going to get this. I don't think that's our mindset. It never has been. The mindset is get better every single day. If you have an opportunity to take advantage of something, be in the best position you can. And I think these playoffs, like he's creating opportunities to take advantage of. That's at the end of the day, that's what he's doing. That's what we try to do from a roster construction. Coaches try to do. You just prepare and you work and you believe and you stay together and you try to do things the right way so you can take advantage of opportunities when they come your way. And Giannis is the best at it. And so I don't know if that quite answers your question, but it's not an expectation of like he's going to get there or he's not going to get there. It's just like a process of get better every day, put in the work. And if you're presented with an opportunity, take the advantage of it. You got to be lucky. You got to be good. You got to be healthy. That was our opportunity this year. We were pretty healthy. We were pretty good. We were pretty lucky, and we took advantage of it. I don't know if that'll happen again ever. I don't know if it'll happen again next year. But what I do know is collectively, we're going to continue to have that same approach, and hopefully there's more opportunity.
I'm sorry, Eric, real quick. I forgot to ask, it is because you kind of forget that he did have that injury and had to come back. Is he like, does he have to have any sort of procedures or anything, or is he just not kind of on a rehab schedule?
Yeah, he's fine. Can't explain it, but he's fine.
All right, Eric, last one.
John, you obviously listened to me ask questions about, your process and whether or not you got enough in the draft. Bud listens to me ask questions about the adjustments he makes. Giannis listens to me ask questions about if he's good enough from the free throw line. Chris hears about whether or not he's good enough as a 2. Drew, you can just go down the roster, and every single guy kind of had those questions. There's a reason. I mean, to me, it feels like there's a reason why all of you were together to kind of get to do that together. But I'm just curious, what did that feeling feel like for all of you? I think in many ways in the city of Milwaukee, you're always going to be the underdogs, and to kind of prove to everyone that you guys could actually do this.
Yeah, it's there's validation in there. I mean, it's we won. We won. And the goal was never to take one shot and be in a position to win one championship. The goal has always been, and you guys are going to beating build something where we can sustain success for a long period of time. And if you get a chance to knock on the door, hopefully take advantage of it. And there is no perfect person or perfect player or perfect executive or perfect coach that exists in the world. And I think there's a lot of power in recognizing that. Drew has some things he's got to get better at, and he has some things that he's elite at. And Giannis the same, and Chris the same, and myself the same, and Bud the same, and go on down all the way on, to Jeff Teague and PJ Tucker and Bobby Portis. And when you can recognize that and you can pull on each other's strengths and you can help fill each other's weaknesses collectively as a group, you can do something really special as a team. That's what we did this year. That's the goal. Like, just continue to get better as a team. And every guy's going to work on, and I don't just mean from a player perspective, everyone's going to work on their weaknesses and try to improve. And if we do that, we'll collectively get better as a group, whoever that group is. And sincerely and genuinely, that is the mindset. And so to me, winning it validates that mindset can be successful. That growth mindset can be successful. But I actually mean this sincerely, and it's easy to say after you win, but Eric, I've said this to you before. I don't know if we're going to win or not. Giannis says this all the time. If we would have lost, there's still power and strength in knowing collectively we've got better at trying to accomplish our goals. And I don't know how long that mindset will last. I think we work really hard to maintain it. But that's absolutely the case. That's what we believe. We want to continue to grow every single day, recognize your weaknesses, improve them, rely on your strengths, get better every day at every level of the organization, put yourself in a position year in and year out to have a chance to win. And the good thing is, I'll end with this, we're locked into these guys. Drew committed to us. Chris is committed to us. Giannis is committed to us. Brooke is committed to us. We've got Donte, we've got Pat. We're going to figure out free agency. We've got some new young guys. There's a core group of people that believe this way and that work this way, that are committed to the mission and the goal at hand, and they're going to approach it this way. And this time it worked, so very thankful for that. We'll see what happens next time.
All right. Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, John.
All right. Take care.